Good morning, everybody, and happy Friday. This beautiful Friday here. We have to enjoy these while we have them because the dreaded W word is coming our way. So anytime it's going to be in the 60s and sunny in Wisconsin in November, we are going to soak it up. So I hope everybody has some fun plans this weekend. I myself, I'm a best man in a wedding for my brother's wedding. So wish me luck with that speech. I was practicing in the car on the way over. Just want to thank everybody once again for coming. And I know I've talked to a few students who have been engaging in these recordings. So for those that watch us on a recording, thank you so much. Thanks for registering. Thanks for taking the time to watch the information. We do want to encourage you, and I'll send out an email when this is all said and done. The series ends next week. To please don't hesitate to use Heather and her colleagues at CGU as a resource. Use our McNair program as a resource. Obviously, welcome to come see us. I just talked to a student who had questions about grad school last night, and I gave that student the same advice. They've been watching all these recordings. So thank you for taking the time. And of course, Heather, thank you to you once again and to your crew for taking the time to help us learn more. And so with that, for those who, I guess I should introduce myself and not be presumptuous. I'm Anthony, Career Services Career Counselor, and kind of in charge of doing more career education type stuff around campus. This is the beginning of that journey as I started in August. And so just grateful for those involved to help us get started on this journey together and help students feel more connected and hopefully more informed when it comes to things like grad school or job search opportunities. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to hand it off to Haley from the McNair program to talk about Stout's McNair program. And then we'll jump in with Heather. Haley, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks, Anthony. So like you said, I'm Haley Hansen. I'm the graduate assistant of the McNair Scholars Program here at Stout. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm currently going for my master's in school counseling. So just to talk a little bit about the program here at Stout, the McNair Scholars Program is really a support system to get students to graduate school or PhD, just that higher level courses. And we do that in a multitude of ways. We help with writing personal statements. We help with funding. So we do a research project for our students and we pay them $2,800 during the summer to pay for that. We help our students go to workshops, seminars. We have traveling funds that we can get our students to graduate schools so they can see if it's a good fit, if that community works for them, really get immersed in that because it's really important that students see if the community and the environment is a good fit for them. We have a very small staff. We have a total of 4 people, one including our writing specialist who is working wonderfully with our students with their research projects, personal statements, applications, all of that. She's been wonderful. Myself, I work a lot with career exploration with students, really honing in on their interests and what they specifically would like to go to graduate school for. And then we have our assistant director and our director who also work one-on-one with students and work on those really specific things with them, like the travel funds and all of that fun stuff. So we accept students in their sophomore or junior year of college. We go through an application process, and to be eligible for the program, you have to be either first-gen low-income student or also underrepresented. So that includes Black, African-American, Hispanic, Latino, Alaskan, Hawaiian Native, and Native American. So if you fall under those categories, you're automatically eligible. So definitely apply. Otherwise, we do have an eligibility survey too if you're not sure if you are eligible. So yeah.
Thanks, Haley. Really appreciate it. So for those students, Taya, you being the only one here, if those resources would be helpful, please use them. So that leads us into a topic of resource. So today we are focusing on personal statements. Haley mentioned personal statements. And we're lucky once again to have Heather Reynolds from Claremont Graduate University, who has been a gracious partner these last 3 weeks, and with our final week next week, talking about financial aid literacy. Claremont Graduate University is a beautiful campus on the edge of Los Angeles, overlooking, it looks like, some mountains, which doesn't sound terrible right now. And so Heather is going to enlighten us on some of the aspects of personal statements, the importance of them, and just some housekeeping stuff. Taya, it's just you. So Taya, you're welcome. If you want to turn your video on, your thing on, if you wanted to ask us questions, you do your thing. You could type whatever you want. We're here for you. You get your own personal kind of webinar. And for those that watch this recording, once again, please feel free to reach out to any of us with any questions. So with that, Heather, you have the floor. Thank you so much again for your time.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Anthony. And thank you, Taya, for coming today. This is one of our more interactive, I would say, workshops, just because, each personal statement, each statement of purpose is going to be, catered to what you need. But just before we start, just a little bit about myself. My name is Heather Reynolds, as Anthony mentioned. I am the Associate Director of International Admissions here at Claremont Graduate University. I've been with CGU for about 5 years now, working in their admissions office in different capacities. Now I specifically work with our international student population, and then, support our recruiters with any type of recruitment strategies and presentations and things like that. I also have completed my master's in public administration, and then I'm currently in a doctorate in educational leadership. So usually I like to bring in my experiences to these sessions and things like that. So that way you can kind of get my experience there. So if you have any questions about what I went through in the admissions process, or even in my master's or my current doctoral program, I'd be happy to answer those for you. But today we're going to be talking about the personal statement and the statement of purpose, because we believe that that part of your application is really key, and a really important piece to kind of demonstrate who you are, what your goals are, your strengths, all of those things can be in this one piece of writing that you're going to submit to the faculty members here. So looking at what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about different types of personal statements and the differences between the different types and when you should use them. Usually it's in the application prompt, which type of writing material that they want or that they require of their applicants. Sometimes it's multiple statements, sometimes it's just one. It just depends. We'll talk about things to keep in mind before drafting, so just some tips there. We'll talk about tips for drafting and things to think about as you start kind of brainstorming for your written piece. And then we'll talk about examples, and that's kind of where the workshop piece comes in. Taya, if you have any pieces of writing that you wouldn't mind sharing, that's totally fine to share there. If not, we can talk through how you can kind of start building out ideas for your statement of purpose or personal statement. And then we'll go through some examples there. And then we'll end with some Q&A at that point. So if you have any questions about anything we talked about, all that stuff, we can address those there. Since we are a small group, I don't mind, if Taya, you want to unmute yourself and ask questions as we go along, or in the chat, I'll try to keep an eye on the chat. I'm sure Anthony will let me know if there's any questions as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so the first topic is types of personal statements, right? Usually a lot of places do sometimes use personal statement and statement of purpose interchangeably, but there are some distinct differences between the two. And you want to make sure that you make note of the type of statement that they're requiring of you, for your particular graduate school application. So in our previous presentations, we talked about looking at the directions, following directions, what do they need, so you can start building out your timeline for your creating your graduate school application materials. So for a personal statement, it's really about who you are, what are your values. So a lot of self-reflection is needed in a personal statement. What's your path been up until this point? So usually it's a lot of, your experiences, either maybe in the classroom, outside of the classroom, interactions with the world, things like that, that help build out your personal statement. And then you also want to include why that particular program is the best fit for you. So it's like, based on my values, based on my experiences, what has led me to this point, and why is this particular program a good fit for my values, for my experiences and things like that. For example, when I was writing my personal statement, and it was a personal statement, so they wanted a lot of my experiences in the classroom. So when I was talking about, when I was getting into my master's program, the main thing that I thought of was, this idea of social justice. And I talked about my experiences, being an underrepresented student within an anthropology, department. And then I talked about how that kind of instilled in me this value of equity and inclusivity and things like that. So you'll want to think about those things when you're writing a personal statement there. And then I included, okay, well, this particular program had this faculty member working on social justice. So this is why this program is a good fit for me. Or your core values of your program were social justice. So that's why I gravitated towards your program. So thinking through those things, therefore, a personal statement will be helpful for you. A statement of purpose is usually the most common, honestly, it's the most common type of statement that they require in the graduate school application. So in a statement of purpose, why are you pursuing this degree, and why is it important for you and for your academic or career goals? What resources does that program offer? So that way you can be a successful, master's or doctoral student. So you want to hone in on some of the research that we, in our previous sessions, recommended that students do for a graduate program. So looking at, do you need a support with writing? So their writing center provides this, this, and this. Or do you need, individualized like mentorship? Do they have mentorship programs? Things like that. So you want to think about those things that you will need to become successful in your master's or doctoral program. And then you want to highlight that in this statement of purpose there, because it's almost like kind of building a foundation for this ultimate goal. So these are the things I need in order to get to this career or academic goal there. Which faculty at that institution are you looking forward to working with? So definitely doing that research about faculty members beforehand, so you can say, hey, this faculty member is working on this research topic, or you can talk about, oh, I've read their articles regarding this, this, and this topic, and I'm interested in learning more about that, or I'm interested in adding that to, my knowledge of the field there. How do you plan to use this degree career-wise? What are your ultimate goals? And in our previous presentations, we suggested, looking at LinkedIn profiles of people you aspire to be, of mentors, of, people who have the job that you ultimately want in the end. So having that idea of where you can go in the end will be really helpful for you in this piece as well. I've also seen in statement of purposes where students have addressed certain discrepancies within their application. So this can be a place where you can address those things where, let's say you're a bad test taker and your GRE scores aren't as high. So you can talk about, your experiences with test anxiety or things like that, and just kind of have a description or, just an explanation of things like that. Or we've seen where students, maybe they have low GPAs in their freshman, sophomore year of college. They talk about it, how they learned from those mistakes and how, maybe they improved with their major specific classes and things like that. So you can use those this piece as an opportunity to talk about those things if there's no interview process or audition or anything like that, in-person component of the application process there. And then I've also seen where, I lost my train of thought, but so other types of types of statements or written materials that they'll need for your graduate school application, they could require a research statement, which will be, something I would say is more common for research heavy types of programs, maybe some PhD programs, things like that. So that's where you want to hone in specifically on your research skills your experiences researching, what types of research topics do you want to learn more about? What have you researched in the past? So all of those things, you know, into that research statement. Some applications require to do a personal statement and maybe a research statement. So then one piece of the application is all about you, your experiences, your values, and then maybe the research statement really hones in on faculty members you want to work with, your experiences researching, what you hope to do, you know, with your research and things like that, how you hope to impact your community or your population that you're looking at. Another piece is an artist statement, you know, could be required for your application as well. Obviously, it's more for an MFA, Master's of Arts programs. But in those types of statements, they want to see, you know, your inspirations for your art. How do you want the population or the community to respond to your art? Things like that. Where'd you get your inspiration? So all of those things. There could be a combination of these different types of statements for the application, but you'll want to make sure that you follow the directions there. And if they need two, then you provide two, or if they just want one. Sometimes they will also require prompts. So making sure you answer those questions within the prompt as well. So things to keep in mind, you know, before you start drafting. First things first, is there a prompt, right? Are there questions that they want you to answer specifically in this piece of writing here? If so, okay, then you want to start answering those questions, you know, and making sure you answer them completely and succinctly. I would say I get a question a lot where it's like, how long should a personal statement or a statement of purpose be? I usually say somewhere between three pages, 5 pages maximum, but I would say about 3 pages should be good, unless there's a specific word or page limit, and then you want to adhere to the application requirements there. But if there's no limit, I would say a good size is 3 to 5 pages, 5 being on the longer side, because you have to think about, you know, the faculty reviewing this, these applications, they're reading hundreds and hundreds of these. So you'll want to make sure you're concise and you answer all the questions if there are questions there. Like I mentioned, are they asking for both a personal statement and a statement of purpose? I feel like sometimes that can be a little bit easier because you have one piece that's all about yourself, all about your experiences, your values, all of that. And then you'll have another piece that talks about, okay, that specific program and those specific resources at that institution there. So making sure you follow those directions there if they require multiple pieces for the application. And are you applying to a centralized application or one unique to that program? Sometimes there are specific pieces of writing that they want for the program, but then they want another piece of writing for, you know, the school itself. So making sure that you follow directions there. And for whichever piece, if they require both or if they require one, you kind of incorporate aspects of yourself, experiences of yourself, or experiences that you've had in and outside of the classroom, and then why that particular program is usually a good measure to go by. So once you've figured out, okay, if there's a prompt, if there's questions, how many pieces of written material they need, is there a word page limit, then you can kind of start drafting your statement of purpose or your personal statement there. So when you're starting drafting, get creative. How do you express your passion? So that's something to think about. How have you expressed your passion in the past? Is it through, you know, specific projects that you worked on, like passion projects that you've been working on? Is it through maybe some volunteer work that you've been working on? Is it some experiences that you've had in the classroom? So thinking about all of those things can really help you figure out, you know, what you're going to include in a personal statement or statement of purpose there. Consider speaking your essay out loud and record yourself. So, you know, once you start writing pieces of the statement of purpose, then you'll want to read it out loud and hear yourself say the words, or maybe have somebody else read it out loud. I know that some of my colleagues in the past, they use dictation. through Word to write down, their thoughts and things like that, but then also it reads it back to you. So thinking through if you need some type of technology or something like that, that will help you do that, or just utilizing other people in your life that may help read it out to you, so that way you can hear what your thoughts are and things like that. One way to start drafting is kind of doing a quick write. So just writing everything down that you've experienced in your education or outside of the classroom, or maybe your goals, all of the things we talked about for a statement of purpose, just writing everything down, kind of like a brain dump. And so that way you can kind of pare it down that way. You just keep writing. From my experience, I am not that kind of person. I can't just keep writing things. I'm more of a bullet point. So this third point is more to my style. So if I have specific questions that I need to answer in the statement of purpose, then I have the question, then I put bullet points of just ideas I have or experiences I have, excuse me, that align, with that question there. And then that's how I start drafting into complete sentences, because I start with concepts and then expanding on that idea. Okay, so my theme is going to be social justice. Okay, great. So what aspects of my life or my in classroom or outside of classroom experiences align with the social justice theme that I thought about for myself? And I think it's a good idea for you to kind of think through, of all of your experiences, is there a central theme? Is there some kind of passion behind that? A student, I was reading a statement of purpose of a student who was looking to get into our arts business program. And they talked about their experiences and how they want to study access to, the access to arts and things like that. So they talked about their experiences, and how that's influenced their research topic. If they've seen it in their outside of the classroom, they've seen, certain types of people go to art galleries and things like that, while others, don't have access to it. So they talk about those things in their statement of purpose, and they highlight that throughout their different experiences in the classroom, and then their hopes to change that for the future as their research topic for their master's thesis. So thinking through those things will be helpful for you. So more tips for drafting. So kind of in a do's and don'ts kind of model here. So you'll definitely want to start early. In my experience, it took me several months to write this, this statement of purpose or personal statement, only because, like I mentioned before, it took a lot of self-reflection on my experiences and what I had hoped to do, what I hope to do with a master's in the future. So you want to start thinking about it early, because you'll also want to provide a draft of it to your recommenders for the other piece of your application. Usually they require 2 to 3 recommendations, and you want to have some form or some draft of your personal statement or statement of purpose to provide to them, so that way they can write a really good letter of recommendation for you. So you want to start as early as possible, just thinking through things, revise. So in my experience, I had 2 people revise. I wouldn't recommend having more than 2. They help me read it out loud, so that way I can hear, my stories and what I was hoping to convey with my statement of purpose. They can help you correct your grammar. They can help you make sure that you have the right school name. That's a big one, I think, because I've seen so many times where students write the wrong school name in, so they can help you with those little things as well. Also, at least at our institution, I'm not sure about all institutions, but at our institution, for our applicants, our admissions representatives can read your statement of purpose for you and can provide feedback. Each representative is different. So for example, me, when I read statement of purposes, I don't correct grammar because that's not my thing, but I will help you correct content and ask, questions where it's like, oh, okay, you included this, but can you expand on this idea a little bit more there? So that can be a resource for you as well. Follow the instructions. So like we talked about before, do they require multiple written pieces from you? Which types of written pieces? Is there a word or page limit? Questions you want to, they want you to answer. So making sure you follow those instructions, because each school is going to have their own requirements. So making sure you adhere to those requirements will be really helpful for you. Show and don't tell. So it's, like I mentioned, my central theme was social justice. So I talked about my experiences working for a nonprofit organization in San Diego that helped educate the community on LGBT, issues and rights. So I talked about that experience. I talked about my experiences working at the Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles, where, a central theme is social justice for I guess, underrepresented populations, and how we were, taking students through these different exhibits, talking about the inequalities happening in different parts of the world. So show them through your experiences inside the classroom, outside the classroom, so that way they can see, all right, so I put into practice, this idea that I have, this value that I have for myself. And then tailor your essay to each institution and program. Like I mentioned, please make sure you change the name. I know copy and paste is like super, it's tempting there. I think you can copy and paste certain pieces, but there are really pieces that you really need to cater to each school. So you want to talk specifically about their resources. You want to talk specifically about their faculty members that you want to work with. You want to talk about the research topics, the values of that school or that program. Make sure you tailor it because we can tell when it's generic. So just throwing in a few pieces that are really specific to that program or that school will make your essay stand out more. Don't start with ever since I was little. We're trying to pull away from those cliche types of phrases. There are certain ways for you to say that, but you could, if you're doing a quick write, you could write that down, as a starting point, but really figure out, all right, is there a way to finesse this? Is there another way that I can say this that isn't that cliched phrase there? Go beyond the statement or word or page limit. If there is a specific limit that they have for you, 1,000 words, maybe 3 pages, something like that, please do not go more than that. You want the faculty member to read your entire essay and be able to, figure out who you are through that. So if you go beyond the pages, I know sometimes faculty, unfortunately, will just not read past that certain point because they have hundreds and sometimes even thousands of applications to go through. So make sure you adhere to that. Do not wait until the last minute. Like I mentioned before, you'll want to provide a draft of this to your recommenders so that way they can cater their recommendation to you. So if you wait until the last minute, then that pushes other pieces of your application material, pushes it to the limit as well. And you don't want to do that. You want to minimize the stress where you can. So again, going back, start early, start thinking about it or drafting, have some ideas of where you want to go. And then you can provide a draft. They don't need the final copy unless you have one early. They just need a draft of where you're at that point. Do not use a template. Like we mentioned, try to tailor your essay to each institution or to each program there. We can really tell when there is a templated type of response. So you want to make sure it's genuine, it's organic. So that's why it took me a lot of time to work on mine, was because, it has to be tailored to each program. And I wanted to make sure it conveyed my experiences, but then also my goals in a really concise way. And then last thing, don't rely on your grades to get you in. So like I kind of started with this presentation, we all think, at least in our office, we all think that this piece is kind of a make or break moment for an application, because this is where you can talk about who you are, talk about your experiences, where your passion is. Faculty want to see your passion. They want to see, what you hope to do? Does it align with the student outcomes that they have, for the program? So grades are one piece of the puzzle, but honestly, I think the statement of purpose really is where you can shine, because the grades, yeah, you can't really control that, but you can control this piece of your application here. So we'll get into some examples. So like I mentioned, this is kind of where the workshop kind of part of this presentation is. So Taya, since you're the only one here, I hate to put you on the spot, but if you have a piece of material that you want to share, that we can share with the group here, and we can talk through it. Or if you don't, that's fine. We can talk about how you can kind of start drafting what a statement of purpose will look like for a particular program.
Yeah, I just started writing them yesterday, so I barely have started on them, but it would be great to like help getting started.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Do you know which program? So I'm going to take off screen share real quick, but which program are you applying to?
The two I'm applying to right now is University of Denver and University of Utah.
Okay, and then which program?
Let me look at my notes. Sorry, I have so many schools that I'm like.
It's okay. I had a spreadsheet myself, like of all the different schools, their different application requirements and things like that. So I completely understand.
Yes, I have a million of notes. Okay, so Utah is the clinical counseling, and I believe that's the same for Denver.
Okay, so what we'll go ahead and do, I'm going to stop share real quick. So what we'll do is I am going to look up the school, and then we can talk through what their values are, and then we can kind of try to help build out for you, where we can see alignment, with that particular program and things like that. So
Perfect.
1 second. Oops. University.
I'm gonna look and see if I could find mine from when I applied to doctoral. Let me see. Let me dig a little bit and see if I can find it. Just to maybe embarrass myself a little bit. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
I am also looking for mine.
Are you looking at the master's in clinical counseling?
Yes, I have both up. I have so many tabs.
Mental health counseling, is that right?
Let me.
Master of Arts Counseling Psychology? Oh no.
So the University of Utah is the clinical psychology one, and then
I have a Master of Arts in Counseling, Clinical Mental Health.
Yep,
University. That one. Okay, let's take a look real quick. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can kind of dissect this for a minute. Okay, so this is the right program? Master of Arts.
yes.
Okay, let's take a look here for a second. So what I would recommend, this is what I would do when I would look at a program. So I would go, this is the School of Education and Human Development, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at their mission and vision as a school within the University of Denver here. So let's take a minute. We'll take like a minute or so and we'll read through this. And then Taya, if you can just share, phrases, keywords or something like that that resonate with you. But we can share that in just a minute.
Okay. I like we strive to be passionate agents of change, mental health leaders, and shape the future. Those are my favorite.
Yeah, that sounds, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, and I think, so I think you really honed in on some keywords. I mean, there's not a lot in their mission and vision, but I think if you picked out those keywords, those are things that they strive for their students to want to be, right? So
Right.
you'll want to think about how this resonates with your values. So take a minute, Taya, to kind of jot down your values, your core values, and then see if any of those align with what they have here. So I'll give you 1 minute to kind of just jot down your values, and then we could talk about how we can align that with what they have on their website.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, I mean, so if you're looking at like your core values, you mentioned agents for, not agents for, agents of change, right? So thinking through, okay, so I like transformational, like, things that will lead to change within this community, or maybe looking at, you have a passion for education, as it relates to counseling or psychology or something like that. So another one would be, let's see, your values can be, I mean, it could be also a population or a specific group that you want to impact or something like that. You value, education of like children like K through 12 or something like that. You can talk about.
And children is kind of where I'm focusing. I mean, I worked at a learning childcare center for like almost 2 years. So that's kind of where my focus is for mental health.
So I guess this kind of builds. So the thing is where what I'm trying to do in this kind of exercise is where you think about the values that you have and you build like some pivotal moments, or you build like your experiences to that. So you value children, talk about that experience that you had working, with children. So it's kind of breaking it down to like a minuscule kind of thing where ultimately you want to impact kids, in your community. Okay, so how did you do that? What led you to this kind of passion? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, so in the end, think about where you want to go. You can say children is one of your passions and impacting, the future, because that was one of the things that they highlight, right? Shaping the future kind of phrasing. You can think about how your particular experience with impacting students or children, of a certain age, and that impacts the future. Does that make sense? So then as you're writing the statement of purpose or this personal statement and you include your experiences with working with kids, it's starting to align with this school's values of shaping the future and change agents and things like that.
Yes, that sounds so good.
Yeah. So you want to think about things like that, where it's like, yeah, we're breaking it down to a core value, but you can think about, some general things you like, you want to impact kids in a positive way. You want to impact the future. And then you go, oh, that's exactly what they say in their vision and mission of that particular school. So then it's starting to kind of put into words how you're aligning with their goals without just saying, hey, I'm a change agent. You're showing them by saying, this is what I've done, and this is how I expect to transform the future,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Heather, I have a
Yeah,
question.
Yeah.
You think it's important to also, current event wise, I think one of the things, mental health has been very much affected by the pandemic, and, children have had their lives uprooted and parents trying to, so you think it's also smart to relay it into how that particular field is being currently affected and what it may evolve into, to kind of speak to how you can contribute to that field as a student?
I was wondering the
Yeah,
thing because I didn't know like if we shouldn't talk about like COVID and how it has affected like our profession, or if we should like, because I
Yeah.
feel like it like COVID, like everyone's talking about it. So like I didn't know like if schools want to hear more about it. You know what I mean?
I know for school counseling program at Scout, they have a prompt for their personal statement, and part of it is to demonstrate that you understand what the job position entails. So I think it would be great to include the current events and how it affects the position, because it shows that you are in line with the current happenings of the profession. You're not kind of hiding under a rock, and you're like staying informed.
I agree. I 100% agree with my colleagues. I know, yeah, but COVID has had such a huge impact on the world and in specific communities. If you're focusing on a specific community that has been heavily impacted by it, I don't think that it's, it's a really hot topic now, and I think you could include it if that's something that is going to be, a focus for you, or, maybe an explanation for something, that you've seen. I think that's perfectly fine for you to include that. And if you include current events, that's impacting the field that you're looking at, I think that's a way for you to stand out, which would have been my next question. What is going on, or what kinds of experiences do you have, or what do you know that's going on that will make you stand out? If you have some of that knowledge of, hey, I'm noticing that in the fields of, counseling, this, and this, or, things like that, that shows that you're kind of trying to keep up with, the current climate, because it's ever changing, especially right now. It's such a weird time right now. So including some of that information can be really helpful for you.
Yeah, and I think Haley just made a really good point. It's not about your views on COVID, but more holistically, how are we viewing how you see it, how you've experienced it, and how you can make an impact as a graduate student in pursuing
Right.
that situation.
Yeah.
I can't find mine. Sorry. I have no idea where it
It's
is.
okay. It's totally fine. Yeah. So, because, everybody's in different stages too. And Taya is, just starting her. So these are good, things for her to think about. So that way, once you start writing it fully, then you have all of these ideas, and then you just pare it down to if they require 3 pages or 5 pages or 1,000 words.
I was able to find mine. Had to do a little bit of digging, but was able to find it. If you want to see it, otherwise I can put it in the chat too, if I can put in attachments.
We can definitely take a look if you want to share it, Haley. We can probably look at maybe like your opening statement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would really help.
Since you're going into a counseling field, I'll just need to get access to share my screen.
Oh, yep. 1 second. Sorry.
Thank you.
1 second. Appreciate you sharing, Haley. All right, you should have
If we're
access.
going into counseling, it should be kind of relevant. Let's see, where is it? Share screen. This one. Sure. Okay. Oops, make it bigger. There we go. know if you want me to read it, but I had just said that my interest to become a school counselor didn't come suddenly. So for me, it wasn't like I knew when I was a child, because I didn't. It was when I was self-exploring during college, when I was able to explore a little bit more in psychology and human development. And then I talked about the school because I'm going to Stout. I went through my undergrad at Stout. I already knew the environment at Stout. So I could advocate for why I believe the environment was a good fit for me. And things that I know that the university strives for. Because I know Stout, since it's a polytechnic school, they are really big on that hands-on experience. So I mentioned how as an undergrad, that hands-on experience has really helped me. And then I mentioned things like inclusivity, accommodations, and advocacy, because those are really big topics within the counseling field. And I know that those words are going to be trigger words that kind of stand out. So I include those in there. I mentioned my involvement, and really you can apply any involvement in some sort of way. Like I work for custodial, and you can talk about how even jobs like that help with teamwork and things like that. And then let's see, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that that's definitely a great start, Haley, for sure, because you know, you have some of that insider experience, so you're able to say, you know, these are things that, you know, University of Wisconsin strives for, and then, you know, your knowledge of the field where you're like, you know, I saw that, you know, within the field of counseling, you mentioned, you know, inclusivity and those types of keywords. So Taya, you know, bring in those keywords into your statement there, like the education or agents of change, that kind of stuff. Just put them, pepper them in there, because it's just kind of like one of those things where it's like, oh, they're using similar terminology. And so building that fit, you know, I'm a good fit because I align with what you want to do. And I think that was good that that Haley included, you know, talks about her experiences. Like, honestly, any experience you can kind of word it in a way, or you can angle it in a way to where it aligns with certain things. So I think that that's a smart move, you know, all experience.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
Heather, I have a
Yeah.
question. As we do resumes, you know, working with teachers recently or future educators recently, the question comes up of incorporating, you know, multicultural experience, and we're at a PWI and in a not very diverse area. And so the ability to work across diverse communities is less, right, than, you know, like the LA area. But obviously it's become a massive emphasis where we've always been behind in it. When you look at things like health equity, when you look at things like educational equity, even if somebody doesn't have explicit experience in that, it's probably a good practice to get in the habit of trying to express how you want to be involved and your commitment to that. Would that be a safe bet?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I mean, if you don't have previous experience in something, you could express your curiosity or your, you know, your goal to, you know, impact, like, you know, different types of populations and diverse populations there. I think that's a pretty safe bet for sure.
Taya's ready now. She's ready for grad school. Let's roll.
Not quite.
So thank you, Haley, for sharing. I really appreciate you digging through and finding that for us so we can look at that. So hopefully, Taya, you have kind of an idea of how you're going to start drafting, you know, or building out your statement of purpose.
Yes, that was really helpful. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, I was like, start there, and then you can kind of build out from there and start putting in your experiences.
Yes.
So just going back to the prompts I had on the screen there. So I don't know what the prompt is for your program, but these are generally the prompts for a lot of different schools and things like that, including all those things we talked about, including your areas of interest, why you're a strong candidate, things like that. Again, your experiences showing that, hey, you know, I align with your goals and your mission there. And then that's a way for you to kind of emphasize why this is a good fit. I would also recommend, Haley had the experience of the university before. If you get a chance to talk with a current student of the program before you draft this or while you're drafting this, they can kind of give you some ideas on why that program was a good fit for them. And then if that's a good fit for you as well, or some characteristics, that can be helpful for you too. So aside from those things, yeah, please, Haley.
To kind of add on that, in my personal statement, I included how I know people who are in that program and that they have spoken highly of the program. So kind of like raising the program on a pedestal so that way they feel special. Because you want to make sure that you're advocating that you're a good fit, but you also want to say that they're a good fit. So yeah, I included that too, because if you can say like, yeah, I've heard great things about your program, it makes them feel good about themselves.
Yes, same thing with interviewing. I always talk about ego stroke. I'm sure it's not the right way to say it, but there's a psychology behind this that, when they get that many applications or that many personal statements, you have to find a way to stand out, and you don't want to just make things up. That's immoral. But the fact of the matter is, if you're impressed or you've heard good things, you should never hide those things, because that could be the differentiator for you.
Yeah, exactly. And it will also demonstrate you do your research beforehand. You're like, I've done my research. I know that this is good, and I've heard this is good about your program. So highlighting that. So that's all I have, but I know we're having a kind of a dialogue here. So any last questions that you have, Taya, or anybody else regarding, personal statement and things like that?
When you are applying to multiple schools at one time, did you get like three different recommendations for each one?
No, I did the same recommendations. Like I had the same recommenders for each school. So I just let the recommenders know to submit for this school,
And then did they need to write, like, say I'm applying to 5 schools, did they need to write like 5 different letters?
Okay. They probably don't, to be honest.
Okay.
It's up to the recommenders. They'll usually write one and then they'll send it to multiple ones. But then from my experience, they ask for details about the schools. So they're like, oh, what are things that you like about the schools and things like that. So it's kind of up to the recommender. You can provide those things to them when you give them the statement of purpose and your resume, and just say, hey, these are a few things about the school that I really like. And so they can cater it.
Okay, sounds good.
And you want to make it as easy as possible for them because they're doing you a favor,
Exactly. That's why I was wondering.
Yeah. That was a great question. I've never gotten that question before. It's a great question.
CG, you got a clinical psych program I'm going to sell Taya on?
Unfortunately not. Our psychology program is an MA in psychology, so it's more research focused rather than clinical.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I did.
Thanks anyways.
Yeah, it's okay. We appreciate it. But I'm hoping that these tips will help you, with your other grad school application.
Yes, they definitely will. Thank you.
Wonderful. Do you have any other questions, Taya?
I don't think so.
Perfect. Well, you're more than welcome, obviously, to reach out to Haley. Haley's been through the experience. You're welcome to reach out to Heather. When I respond to the group with the recording, I'll put their information into an email or CC them on there so that students who watch this, or you, if you wanted to reach out with any questions, you're obviously more than welcome to. I'm always happy to talk to, but I'm gonna, go ahead and talk to them. They know what they're doing. They've been through it. So, any final statements, Heather, when we head into this beautiful weekend?
No, I think, the students who are attending these webinars, you're on the right track. I wish I had these webinars when I was applying to grad school, because it would have just been a one-stop shop at how I can put the pieces of the application together. So we're just happy that we're able to partner with you and kind of spread this information, because it was daunting when I started. And then, just taking the tips we have, hopefully it will just be helpful for you, not just with your application at CGU, but with other applications at different schools.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned before we got recording, even though the numbers of live participants aren't huge, I'm talking to students who are watching the recordings and the information's been really, really well received. So we are so grateful for you to take the time to be, I don't know, 1,100 miles or something away and be able to put this quality information together and be on the same team is really appreciated. So thanks for your collaboration. Thanks for your expertise. Thank you to Haley for swinging by and representing McNair. Please, for those that listen to this recording, or Taya, don't be afraid to tap into that resource on our campus. Use every resource you can, because the reality is not only will you be more prepared, but hopefully you'll be more confident as you step into these pursuits, because it can be a little daunting, and we hope that we can relieve some anxiety and make it less overwhelming. So thank you, Haley. Taya, thank you for joining us. And Heather, once again, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have an enjoyable weekend. And we'll see
Thank you
everybody.
guys. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you as well. We'll see everybody next Friday for financial aid literacy for grad students. So have a good one. Be well.